Yeah, well, I'm looking at charts at the moment of the British royal family, and I'm particularly looking at the horoscope of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, her husband. If this is of no interest to you, turn off now, because this is probably going to be a little bit longer than normal. But one thing that's really jumped out at me is how strong each other's moons are. They both got the moon in Leo, both the Queen and Prince Philip. And Philip's moon is exactly opposite the Queen's Jupiter and opposite her Mars. So I see him as providing a great deal of emotional stability and support for her. And I'm convinced that with the moon in the same sign and quite close to each other as well, that they giggle almost inanely to each other and with each other about the stupidity of the world. His horoscope, he's Gemini with Leo moon and Capricorn rising, whereas her horoscope, Taurus with Leo moon and Capricorn rising. There's actually a great deal of similarity to each other. However, they met or were introduced, it does seem as if the universe had some kind of fated hand, because they are exceptionally compatible with each other. I know that according to various rumours, which you will never see in print of course, there's been ups and downs in the relationship between them, particularly in the late 50s. But underlying this, there's a really strong bond. His sun is exactly trine her Mars, his Mars is trine her Mars. They really get on very, very well. And I want to make it clear that I'm not a royalist. I do genuinely believe that most of the royal family need to basically go and get off their backside and go and get a job. But the hardcore firm, as in the Queen and her husband, his son, their sons, the babies, the hardcore middle, the firm line of the royal family, yes, I'm a monarchist. I believe that this country that I'm part of needs to have a monarch, simply out of basically respect and tradition, because the fact we've had a monarch for 2,000 years. And I prefer the magic of monarchy as opposed to a president. In that light, I'm looking at both of these people's charts, bearing in mind that Prince Philip is now into his early 90s and that the Queen is well into her mid-late 80s. Obviously, they can't go on forever. The Queen has been on the throne since before I was born, and I'm nearly 60. She was born with Saturn on the midheaven. How strong is that when it comes to leadership material? A born queen, indeed. Even though she was never meant to be queen, she was kind of parachuted in. It is not really the nature of their charts that I seek to divine any further. Instead, I am looking at the upcoming transits to their horoscope and what this means. With Prince Philip, he's coming up to having Pluto passing on his ascendant all of next year. We have his birth time and the Queen's birth time accurate to the minute, so we know this is correct. And Pluto on the ascendant for someone whom next year will be 94 is not looking that brilliant. In addition to this, Saturn in a few months now, a couple of months from now, less than that, will square his moon, which is after all the part of him which is almost childlike and playful. With the Queen's chart, whilst Pluto in the sky and Uranus in the sky are making lovely aspects to her horoscope, Saturn is brewing for a big one. Shortly, by shortly I mean start of November 2014, the Queen's third Saturn return. Within the space of 2 weeks, Saturn in the sky will pass square to the Queen's Neptune, square to her Mars, square to her Jupiter, on her Saturn, on her midheaven, at the same time as squaring the Prince Philip's moon. And this will happen. It will happen to a certain extent at the end of October, but the crunch point is the first 10 days of November, maybe the first 2 weeks of November this year. It may also be worthy of note that the partial eclipse of the Sun at 0 degrees of Scorpio in late October of this year, on the 23rd of October, 24th if you're in New Zealand or Australia, is exactly opposite the Queen's Sun. So, although I have further comments to make on this when I look at the horoscope of Prince Charles and other members of the royal family, I cannot help assume from an astrological perspective that there's going to be a short, sharp influence coming in to the lives of the British royal family at a very high level during late October and especially the first 2 weeks of November. And it would not surprise me at all if there were to be either some very difficult and possibly traumatic news concerning individual members of the royal family at this time, and or if the Queen were to not stand back and go, do you know what, I've been doing this over 60 years, it's my Saturn return, I'm in my late 80s, I think I'll take a step back now. It would not surprise me at all if this were not to become a reality, or at least the start of this process were not to be seen at the start of November of this year. Why? It may have something to do with the Scottish debate. We shall see. She's been a good servant to this country. I think she deserves a few months' rest. If she chooses to step back, I'll fully support her for doing so. She obviously wants to outdo Victoria, but here's another option. Maybe she'll step back. I shall look at the horoscope of Prince Charles tomorrow. Catch you later. Bye.